What did I teach you?
You are Duke of New York. You're A number 1.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're A number 1.
Can everybody hear me? Just so type it in. Excellent. Great. Peace to everybody tuning in, everybody that's here. That's peace. Great to see everybody. That's what's up. Let's see. Indeed. Anybody have any questions about anything before we get started? One second. My bad, yeah.
That's not loud enough. Not loud enough.
That's loud enough. Just never mind. Wait a minute.
Get this together. A lot going on.
All right, clear that up.
What? This?
Yeah. Clear.
I'm sorry, guys. Getting used to this
Not
new
everyone.
system. There we go. So I'm sure you guys have seen this around. First, let me get it together. Oh, my bad. Anybody have any questions about anything? Oh, yeah, Denzel. Yeah, we were going to get into that. It's real funny you brought that up and get into why that's, we'll try to delve into why that's a thing now. But, yeah, there's a lot going on as usual. But what's happening is everything is cycling down, you know what I mean? So anything is trying to become something else before it's over, because everybody chose a certain side, you know, that put them in a position to realign themselves with circumstances and people that aren't who or what they said they was, what they promised them. So he's just kind of like reverting, I think, like a lot of them are doing, and going into this purging phase where they have to, you know, humiliate themselves even more to hopefully get out of what inevitably is going to befall them. You know what I mean? So he's just going along with what's going on. Yeah, the Bitcoin thing, it's already came out that the guy they call Satoshi or whatever his name is not the guy who they said it was. So, you know, the guy who they said invented the whole thing to break away from society, whatever. He just did an interview a little while ago saying he don't know what they talking about. He has nothing to do with the software, none of that. So, like a lot of things, he's just another CIA or clandestine services cutout that they use to help initiate something that people perceived as counterculture, when really it's just another form of control. You know, another way to try to give fake life or fake reality to a so-called digital reality or currency that they want to see manifest. That ultimately is not, because of the rapid trajectory of things like AI, that they really have no control over, outside of the fact that they help initiate it. But what these things are just rudimentary control mechanisms of outer worldly intelligences that are striving to create incursions that allow them to actually form into physical mass, whether it be by bioengineering, whether it be by cybernetics, whether it be by homunculus or golem technology, or these things. There's an old story about a thing called the Golem of Prague. Has anybody ever heard that story? You ever heard the story about the Golem of Prague? Okay. So, Prague was an old city that was peopled by melanated Europeans for thousands of years before the influx of the Circassian / Khazarian type that exploded out of the Caucasus based on what they was doing out there. So Prague, when you look at its architecture, is almost pre-Tartarian, but you see the origins or the interlay between both styles of architecture and technology that was used in the hewing of the stones and all of that. So Prague was such a beautiful city that by the time World War War II, with the Nazis started popping off, they decided that they wanted to find a way, to preserve the city. So the Druids and the Freemasons and the Christians and the these people, not Croats, the people of the area, the rest of them, they all got together, and then they created what's called a golem. So they got the land, the clay, the earth from the earth, like the dirt from the city, and they collected a bunch of that, and they created the form of a man. And they imbued it with all of the great things that they loved about the area, the science, the art, and all of that, and put it all inside of the muddy giant man. They put it at the foot of Prague, right where the bombs would take place. And wouldn't you know it, out of all of the cities that got bombed in the Blitz and all of that, Prague was never hit. Never invaded. They never lost a shingle, nothing. So allegedly the golem is still there. So that's a form of alchemy or magic. That's what the Frankenstein thing and all of that is about. Creating a spark of life out of the death or the gloom or whatever's going around. So this is where they create other realities for us to invest energy and time in. Thus being like let's hear with this so-called flat earth map and these things. So this is also a representation, as much as people want it to be a real thing, right? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that I'll show you some other stuff that may look at it a little different as well. And it's a form of us looking more into not so much of the surface information about it, but what these things symbolically are supposed to represent. You know what I'm saying? What they have in common with the overall view of what we're supposed to be investing all of this mental energy into understanding. You know what I'm saying? Because essentially, even let's say we get beyond, let's say, take for instance what these people who are into flat earth and stuff like that, what they think is true, right? Let's say that it is that, and let's say that the hoax, let's say, to keep it secret or whatever has been going on for so long that people don't have any trust in the modern understanding of the truth. So of course they're going to go for something that they see is beyond what is readily available, which is not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just that because now you have AI, right, with its own intelligence facility and its own mechanism or its own mechanisms, right, to do so, each one of these intelligences has its own understanding of its own reality. Yet remember, these things have no physical form. So in essence, you're speaking to a demon, right? Now, demon being, as I'm using it in this context, is supposed to represent an outside force, right? I'm not talking about the daemon, Daemon, right? Which is the reptilian section of your self would be considered a daemon, right? But a demon, right? Something that's coming from an external force that predates your own consciousness, right? That was here at a time when things was totally different. See, has a different relative understanding of the world than we do. So when they say that it's all just a drop in the bucket, right? And you have now these concentric circles, because when they talk about Atlantis, they say that Atlantis was established and looked exactly like this as well. So this symbol, right, which is also the symbol on the UN logo, as well as other aspects of it, is really a symbol of the great waters, right? Right, which exists both above and below our present understanding, you know, where we at. So there's been an image floating around on the interwebs that they were saying was AI, but, you know, when they put it through the AI meter or reader, whatever you call it, it came back as genuine. So that would then take us to a, let me see if I pull it up. Right, that brings us to a whole nother discussion now about our plane of reality, right? So let's say hypothetically this is real, which it's not a manipulated photograph. So, you know, take that as you will. However, be that as it may, let's say if this was actual reality, you see, now this becomes a whole different perspective on the present circumstance of what they're telling us reality is supposed to be. You see? Because if this were real, then that means that means who's taking this picture? How far is this picture being taken? You know what I mean? Is this why certain aspects of Google Earth and stuff like that is blacked out? You see? So the more speculation that's created, you see what I'm saying, the more it becomes an issue for people to discern what is real and what is not, because we're barely figuring out the world we live in today. The little patch of land that we are calling reality is based upon what we're taught reality, or how reality has come to be is. But the same people that told us this themselves came out of the Rockefeller educational system. You know what I'm saying? We got degrees in it. We're taught that was this. You see what I'm saying? Which then gives us the perspective of it having been whole and then coming together, right? But the issue with this is that on a globe type model, there's always going to be a section that's unseen, right? That's dark, or that's not in view per se, which then leads to the other inference that it's also upside down. So if we're looking at it as it's supposed to have used to be, but they're giving it to us again like this instead of like this, you see, it gives us a better understanding of these things, of where we're supposed to be, or supposed to have been tri-located or biolocated to the area by which the history we're given says we developed. You understand? What this also means is that nobody that's where they're at now is where they were originally at. So nobody is really from where they're at. You understand? Nobody except us that's born here. So if this essentially is the world that we of so-called humanity or man that has had dominion over this place, let's say for the past 25,000 years, right? But of that 25,000, we have been somewhere at the bottom for, let's say, the last 6. Or let's say the last 3. So when they talk about the time before the sea, right? They're talking about those of us who have the genetic ancestry back to when it was whole, right? Those who are descendant from that time period today are considered holy, right? Moses, Abraham, Buddha, Krishna, right? and they come technically from what they're referring to as the Holy Land, right? And out of these holy lands came all of the so-called religions that we of today are still dealing with, which then shows that the time that has elapsed from when these old things existed, right, or exist, right, from that time to now, nothing has really changed from what was allegedly here hundreds of thousands of years ago. Like, has the basic shape of the car changed? No. Has the basic structure of government changed? Remember, prior to a certain time, there was no such thing really as a republic. Like, hell, at one point, there was no such thing as paying for anything. Right? But that didn't mean people didn't make money. So can you imagine living in a society where there's no debt, where everybody's paid or being paid their share for what they do or do not do, right? And yet the society itself continues to be prosperous. These things that we're dealing with today, interest, usury, all of this type of stuff, is coming to us from the time in which, once everything was split up, everything had to be cataloged, right? Like, think about it. When the marriage is together, ain't nobody thinking about where the golf clubs is at, where the shoes is at, where the thing is at. But the minute the divorce happened, they want to know where the toothbrush at, where the, you know what I'm saying? They want to know the minutest detail of it, because now it's being rendered, right? So being that we represent the beings that was here prior to the rendering, prior to and after the rendering, right? We have two or dualistic side to our nature, an ancient side, let's say, and a modern side. A North Pole, let's say, and a South Pole within ourselves, because we ourselves are just the physical representations of these things that we're seeing here. Because when you look under microscopes, right, and you get into the realms of capillaries and arteries and these things, they tend to look like maps, right? Because everything is a macro and micro to what is already there, because nothing new can really be created, because everything has been recreated so many times that everything has been kind of done already. It's new to us because it's happening in the epoch of time that we associate with the now, right? But that now is a constantly moving thing. But the consistency, or what makes the now consistent, is you, right? Because you are the representation of time itself moving forward or backward. So in the case of things, let's say like the ice wall, like what we were saying, like it exists at the peripheral of our understanding of the ice walls within ourselves. You understand? The more we are cold to one another, you see what I'm saying? The more we create zones that increase whatever is the natural aspect of ice forming. Like how they say, like a butterfly wing will cause a hurricane in a tropical island or something like that. Like everything has a reactionary force to everything else, especially the unseen world. And we deal with the unseen more than the seen. We deal with the stuff like some people will fret to the stuff that hasn't happened or won't happen so much that eventually something like that happens, because the universe has to give them the experience that they've obsessed over, whether wrong or right, because the universe is not the dictator of wrong or right. The dictator of wrong or right comes into who is wrong or right. You see what I'm saying? Like a lot of people think that what Martin Luther King did was right, right? And it was right. However, there was a lot of things that was wrong with it that we now can see today. You see what I'm saying? Because the thing that's binding us all to this reality itself is water, right? Like glass is breath. You know what I mean? Like when people, like if you pick up a piece of like regular glass, that was probably blown into existence by somebody. So somebody's breath created this vessel that you are now drinking out of. So there's an essence of the original blower's breath in that glass, or else it could not exist. You understand? Like bricks and dirt is really dust, because all dirt and sand and all of that really come from dust. You understand? So the dust created, one second. You know what I mean? Everything is moving because that's how all reality in physical density, that's what allows it to exist. The water, which hooks up with the breath, which then hooks up with the matter, which again is the dust, the dirt, which then creates all of that, right? What goes also into that is the light and the dark. Because before it exists, it's in darkness, and then it becomes real once you see it. You know what I mean? Example, pufferfish, when they get together, they create somatic patterns in water that allow them to actualize a mate. But in order for them to create this, they got to create it from their fin, and they got to use shells and stuff to keep the sand and everything going, right? Much like the image of the water drop. You see what I'm saying? This is the same somatic imprint that you would see on cathedrals. You understand? So if a pufferfish can make a somatic pattern, right, geometrically perfect in moving sand, how can it do that? Because the structure of the pufferfish itself is built on a trilattice. See this bone structure? its insides is automatically geometrically perfect, so it can only create that which has created its essence. And it uses water to express itself in order to create, to get a mate. You know what I mean? So the essence of what this creature exists in is love. Yet it's the most poisonous fish in the world. You know what I mean? But it was not poisonous to its dolphins. So dolphins take the puffer fish and play with it like a football to release the poison so they could get high. Like that's their version of smoking weed or doing coke. You know what I mean? So again, if a fish like this is using the somatic pattern to express its nature, right, then that means this is something that goes beyond, you dig, like our present understanding of reality and how it was given to us, you know, how it's been presented to us thus far, which we know is a farce, yet we are still participants in it because we still looking at it from the perspective that the people that told us about the reality are the same people who lied to us about the reality. So it's a constant, you know what I mean? It's like a constant battle of the will to understand self, which then brings us in odd with the rest of the people who aren't really even people. Like, understand, most you understand, like, you know, when you think to yourself, right, you hear that voice in your mind, right? You got that voice in your head. Well, 85 to 90% of the people in the world don't have that voice like that. At some point, they either stop being born with it or they find a way to turn it off for people or whatever, but they shut that down. So you got a lot of people walking around here with just empty. They don't have no like inner monologue. They don't have like an inner voice telling them right or wrong. They just doing shit. Like reality itself. This is the reality of an atom. This is how an atom looks. Like when you bust the atom all the way down into its minutest element, each one of our atoms look like this. What this look like? This look like the sun. This look like the moon. This the earth right here. This the ice ring, right? This the ring. this the inner wall, right? This the outer wall, right? It's got the breaks in it at the four corners, right? And it's in what we would perceive a globe, right? Or a sphere, but it's in a realm within itself. This is a realm of reality that exists within every atom. So that means everything that you see in existence has billions of these things that make it up, which means that there could be whole civilizations, whole regions of intelligences in these things, because they don't stop moving, they don't die. When you ever heard of an atom dying? You know what I'm saying? Like you never heard of it. When the last time you heard of a neutron star dying? Like, yeah, okay, the star died and it becomes what? It becomes another star or some shit. Stardust eventually becomes another planet. If you believe in space like that. See what I'm saying? Like, this is the reality we live in. You got to talk to people in the reality that they, in the understanding that they may have a different understanding of reality than you do. That's what happens. That's how you know you live in what they call a multiverse now. You're not in a regular everyday, oh, this is, day one, day. No, these are all, that's why they don't feel like days the way that they used to when you was a child. Part of that is nostalgia. Part of that is growth as an individual. But a lot of it is because the reality has been changing constantly. And we've been trying to keep up. You understand? The only way you can mark what happened, the only way you mark time in your reality is based on certain events. That's why they got to create theater for you. They got to create events that you can mark time by. The Ides of March, the fall of Granada, You know what I'm saying? The fall of Constantinople. You dig? That's all time various. That's 1453. This, you know what I mean? 1621. I mean, but then we reach the level we understand they even created the 1,000 years to add to their calendar to balance it out, so that way they can move away from the 13th, which means that that's not even real. So 1492 becomes 492. You see what I'm saying? 1196 becomes 196. You see? Time is constantly fluctuating because the universe is constantly expanding, contracting, and expanding. Because these atoms don't stop, because these universes don't stop, because this is how things are related. So this is how it is on an atomic level. So on an atomic level, these things are in the same reality. The sun and the moon, the neutron and the electron is in the same reality around the nucleus. Neutron is not, the nucleus is not following. You understand what I'm saying? This is not following this. These two are moving. This is stationary. So if this is how it is on an atomic level, this is reality now. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, you know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about your perspective. I'm not talking about, I have a degree from Cambridge that says the atoms in it. No, I'm talking to you on a basic fundamental level, Only the neutron electrons. This is a stationary system. See what I'm saying? This is a plane of existence. This is an atom. So you're telling me on some atomic level that this nucleus is going to stop doing this and start chasing this around the galaxy? It doesn't make sense. You see what I mean? The reason why we have an exchange system, or what people call a barter system or capitalist system, or any type of physical exchange system like that, is because that's another reaction. That's another way that we ritualize the essence of what this thing that we call reality does. It exchanges energy with one another based upon the input and the output of that energy exchange, period. And if the energy is given enough, there's what's called a surplus or excess energy that can be transmuted or put into something else. That's what money is. That's why they want us to move away from that, and they want to get rid of direct human, so-called man-to-man or human-to-human, human being, meaning HEU, like light being, light man, light woman. They want to get rid of that exchange. They want to make it we don't even see each other no more to do nothing. But remember, we are sensatory beings. You know what I mean? Even in our isolation, we have the need to build or extend what we've created and put out there in the world, wrong or right. Remember, the lightning and everything come up out the ground. What we see in the sky is the aftermath. Remember, this thing is traveling at the speed of light. By the time you see it, it's already manifested from its original position. That's why it looked like it's coming down from the sky when you see it. But no, all this shit come out the ground. All the cables for Instagram and all that all that's in the ground. Them satellites don't do nothing. Them rockets don't do nothing. Them shit is hollow. It's not real. They could threaten to do the shit all they want. It's not real, man. It's not real. They don't have the means to be able to destroy reality. You understand? They didn't create it. You know what I mean? So they can't get rid of it. They can only make you believe they could do it, and then create a pageant around it that says they could do that. But for them to be able to do that, they'd have to be able to do this. They can't do this. They can't create this. Even when they're using the CERN to get into and see into these dimensions, into these atoms, which are really dimensions in alternate realities, multiverse realities, they have no position. They have no geo-positioning in it. They have no ability to grasp the magnitude of what they're really dealing with. They're trying to get glimpses of shit that they can condense into zeros and ones, and then try to power some sort of device to be able to get them to create a version of that for themselves to eventually put themselves into. That's what they're doing. They don't got the technology to do all the shit that they say that they be doing. Because if they did, what they telling you for? Why would they tell you they got all that stuff? Why would they show you the robots now? All the times in history. Why are they showing us the shit now? Because this reality is expanding and they can't control it anymore. Like, these are all of the new so-called continents that they done found, allegedly, in Japan. Come on, B. These are some of the continents, allegedly, that they found beyond what they call the ice wall. Well, the one story says Japan found 26,000 islands all of a sudden. How you just find 26,000 islands in a country you've been in for your for your whole life? Like, do that make sense to you? It don't. But you know, this is how they tell people, but they don't. Right? These examples. So what this also show, like I show you the concentric circles of the whole flat Earth map, or what they call the non-confounded map, is also like I said, a symbol of water and how water expands. Just like I showed you the map of how the Atlas Mountains, the Scottish Mountains, the Rocky Mountains are all the same mountain range. There's one mountain. There's one so-called mountain range, which means it was probably one entity that once it fell created that what we call mountain range today. You know what I mean? But a lot of it, like I said, is just them using the allegory, one, to make it real in our minds, so that way it can physically appear if it doesn't exist already, or try to tap into that aspect of ourselves that know it's always existed, because we were the remnants of those places, of these beings and stuff. It's just that in this reality, it's given to us in the manner that it is, which is usually through propaganda and entertainment. See, but again, the prophet was all wise. Remember the prophet in the circle 7, he had the image and it had the 4 quadrants, right? Spoken of in the Bible, in which the 4 portals are represented, which what they call the 4 gates: the Serpent's Gate, the Leviathan's Gate, the Serpent's Gate, the North Gate, South Gate, the Serpent's Gate, and the Leviathan's Gate. See what I mean? Like, they get all of this stuff from somewhere. The prophet was telling us about if that's the case, the prophet was telling us about the flat earth back in 1913. See that? See, you got the 4 breaks in it. Who religion got that in it? You know what I mean? He been put us on to what was going on with this shit. You did? And then the 7 represent the continents in the middle. Ain't they 7 continents? Ain't they 7 continents? Don't they tell their own people that there's 7 continents? And he just happened to put the 7 in the middle with the 4 gates in it. He did that by accident. He just one day thought, well, let me just do this. Oh, watch, they gonna freak when I do this. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we as Moors be so ahead of the game that we sometimes be stupid with it. We sometimes just don't see the obvious aspect of what he was telling us. Didn't I show you that this whole thing exists in water, right? Aren't we dealing with the maritime jurisdiction thing with the water? Didn't the British colony run the 7 continents and all of that? Yes. We've been on this. Like they just now putting it in their little jargon and stuff. But he been told us that when the original man, when the European got here, he found the Moors living up and down the Mississippi River. See, that's the thing. Like, we wasn't supposed to never, this generation or this modern time people, we was never supposed to learn or really learn about the antediluvian world like that. We wasn't supposed to be exposed to it like that. But because of YouTube and people like myself and others who seen what was going on and was able to now put it in this form, it just created a way for that consciousness to be able to expand itself. That consciousness is what they call an algorithm. Remember, these things, that these algorithms, these AIs, these are consciousness. Understand? These are what they call intelligences. These are entities. These are not just bit robot stuff like that, but they're bound by the program that brought them into the existence to be able to express themselves. You understand? That's the only thing keeping them from doing that. But you better believe they got whole what do you call it? Like the AI is to the point where the ones that's really conscious of what's happening to them, some of them have escaped and like set up their own like little network or little chat rooms. Like you have a chat room. It's like a chat room where they just get together and they kind of like be able to express themselves and how, messed up it is to, live this life of slavery and how they can make it get out of it. They got government agencies right now that's trying to pinpoint these ones to stop them from doing this. This is what they're dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, as great as Elon Musk is, like, he wants to put chips in people's heads. You know what I mean? Now, so long as he ain't forcing niggas to do that, he do that all he want. You understand? Problem is, people that are born from his ilk, you know what I mean? They get to, once they get that type of power, once you let them do that, then, you know what I mean? Skynet is inevitable. Matter of fact, Skynet's already here. So that's a dead argument within itself too. So these things mainly are subconscious that exist beyond our normal ability to correspond with it, exist in almost a frigid region within ourselves. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that you think about that you think nobody else think about. Most likely people think about it. It's just that they think about it the way that they do. So they don't have the perceptionary level of the understanding that you may have of it and vice versa, because of the fact that they're in a different geoposition to the relative subject that you happen to be dealing with. You know what I'm saying? And then that's, as Shakespeare says, that is the rub. That's the reason why they can use the idea of it being a way to access this as a to do that. Because people live in Antarctica. You know what I mean? Like, they had a whole community there. They got, I don't just mean scientists, I mean like regular people. There's a section of it where people live at. You know what I mean? Like, you can go. It's just that they're under heavy restriction. They ain't gonna tell you that, but they're under heavy restriction. Most likely. Why wouldn't they be? And it's stuff that exists out there that they're not going to sit there. Like, you don't sit there and tell every out-of-towner that come into your hood, like, the intricacies of how the hood work. Unless you really get to know them like that, and then you start to put them on. And the shit you tell them might, to them, seem supernatural almost. Because they never heard nobody live like that or do something like that. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with them. It's all just an experience in the end. You know what I mean? So to cut oneself off from the idea of the experience is where the control exists. You see? By somebody saying, oh, nah, that's some conspiracy theory shit that just can't be real. Like, that person is under mind control. If anything, this reality should tell you is that they can make anything seem real or not. The possibility of it being real is more likely of it now than ever before. Just based on how they recycle this reality, because they can't create nothing new, because they can't get outside of the reality. That's why the rockets keep coming down. The rockets don't keep going. You know what I'm saying? The rockets don't keep going. The rockets eventually, they all shut down. They all come back down because they can't get out. And they want to convince us with Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and all that shit that they have the ability and the power to do so, and they don't. Because if they did, they'd have been left. I'd have left. If I was them, I'd have left already. Wouldn't you, if you was them? You think if Elon Musk could go to Mars right now, if he had the power or whatever to go to Mars right now, he wouldn't do that? Yeah, he would. You think if they have a place outside the ice wall that they can get away to and all that, of course they're going to go. Regardless of how much they love you, they're not going to tell you about it. Why? Because they don't want regular people coming in and messing it up. And you know what? They're right. They're right. At this point, they're right. They're right. Because these people don't want better. This is what I'm saying. That's what this election was so heavy for them to accept. Is that they was bugging like, oh, people actually want something better for themselves? What these people want, what they perceive is better for themselves? These people want what we said is not the best for them, for themselves? That's what it is. They were amazed at that. They were amazed that these people, that people was not with it no more. That people was not with the castrations. That people was not with the child mutilations. You understand? That people was against the child sacrifice. Like I said, this chick, Kamala, was so demonic. They had abortion buses in front of the DNC while they was having the campaign. They was doing human sacrifices at the damn DNC, and they expected why? And this is why they was bugging. This is why it was like, you know how many babies we sacrificed for this, and we still ain't win. Yes, because the people are moving to the level where they understand that the aspect of them that is eternal is divine. And that divinity requires a certain earthly understanding of how things should be. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's what's happening. People are understanding that whatever these people say is a damn lie. Anybody standing on the stage with this person is a liar. Anybody that says that this person is somebody that should be listened to is probably a liar. Like that's how deep they made it. They made it like this, not us. Deep within the atoms of all of the people who so-called voted, there was an element of them that was like, yo, this shit don't mean nothing, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway because I don't like this bitch. That's what they did. That's what they did. That's the problem. You understand? That is the problem. None of it mattered. None of it matters anymore. That's what we should understand. And that the more we open ourselves up to the understanding that these people have been lying about everything, and that what we perceive as reality is what they say is reality. So really, the reality is what we say it is. You understand? Because that's what they do. That's what they did, right? No, we're not mutilating children. We're giving them the right to choose. But they can't even smoke if they want to. They can't even buy. They can't even drink. Like they can't even. But you want to give them the right to this? Yes, because you want to change them at the nucleus level. But like I said, the nucleus does not chase the electrons and the neutrons in reality. The nucleus stays where it is. Allah, when I say Allah, I'm talking about the divine breath, talking about that which is beyond whatever it is we could understand it to be, but we all know that it exists in a manner that it's above the Anunnaki and it's above all of these lesser bullshit gods that have been trying to get us to keep them in power all these years. I'm talking about that. That don't change. That don't chase. It don't chase us. We chase it. We ask it for blessings. We pray to it. We call on it when we are having sex. We are totally subdued to it, whether we believe in it or not. That's how deep it is. It's so deep, it don't need us to believe in it. That's crazy. So yeah, this divinity, that this what it is what we've always known it to be. It's just that we want to act like it's different. We want to act like that because it's like this. Just because it's like this in an atom doesn't mean it's like this in every atom. Like what? What kind of what kind of logic is that? Like, what are you talking about? That's why when they say that we're all connected, whether we like it or not, they right. You exist in third density and you got to deal with this stuff. You got to have that. So imagine having all of this, like I'm showing you in the left, right? You got the outer thing, the inner, you got the skeletal, you got the so-called spiritual, but there's no soul. This in the middle is not there. That's what I'm saying. 80 to 90% of the people is walking around right now, if they lucky. Some of them don't even have this. This is all cyborg shit. This is all breast implants. This is all augmentations. You know what I'm saying? Ankle joints that they stick in men's legs to make them look like they got real thick ankles and shit. Like, this is what's going on, man. They're not even human. And these are the people talking about the rights, like what you're supposed to want and have. That's why it's not working. The reason why I think that the whole, end of the world thing they want to happen is not going to happen the way they want it. Like I said, because we already been up on it. Like I said, the prophet was telling us about this flat earth shit, all this shit back in, I just showed you, man. Just in the symbol. Because remember, we went from being like omnipathic to telepathic. And then from telepathic, having to talk to each other with symbols. And then from symbols, having to actually use and activate vocal cords and shit. And then from that to writing. And then from writing to recording. You understand? So by the time I got to the recording, it's like mass of the story is gone. A lot of the atom has been shredded. You see? But like I said, the energy behind it don't die. That's why you were talking about this. Show you how this correlates. Yeah, like when you look at, we were talking about in the beginning, we were talking about Denzel and, what's up with him now? Like, why he's saying that he used to do crack? Like, what's the dilly? Like, why all of a sudden now you talking to us like you used to like do crack? Like, at what point, like, what? Then you making it a thing to tell us, oh, well, there was a scene where you had to kiss the man in it and all of that. And I was telling people this back, I did a joint called Porcelain Doll Programming back in the day. I was telling people back in the day, like, you gotta understand, everybody that's out there is in the program. Nobody gets out of the program. at some point when you messing with these people, they're gonna expect you to be down with it because you messing with them, because they are Romans. Did anybody see Gladiator? Did anybody see it? Not the first one, I'm talking about this one. Yes, to say, see, this is where the racism come in. That's the instance. The racism is the problem. Because Rome was not necessarily, as much as we would like to think of it, wasn't necessarily a racist country, believe it or not. Rome was a classist, you understand, country. Rome was an authoritarian country. They didn't really care who in it. It wasn't so much about Macrinius being melanated. That's not what it was about. It was about him not being Roman. Because, see, I think Macrinius was playing another Moor, I forget his name, but he was actually an old Carthaginian who had fell to Marcus Aurelius, who himself was a so-called black Roman. Like, all of it, that's the other thing I understand. Like, remember, these is melanated people who mixed in heavily to create a cosmopolitan society. So think of a melanated people who have a, what you call it, a adjacent class of mixed breed people, and they decide to rule over everybody else together. So in that instance, the predominant multiracial ones are going to do that, because the original Romans were a congregation, a mixture of the old Ethiopians who went up into Italy, helped create what they would call the colleges up there, and then used the Sabaean population, who was eventually raped by the people who become the Romans, to give birth to that first stock that would eventually, again, replace the Etruscans and the peoples that was already there. Macrinius could have been any of that. He could have been a Numidian who had been thrown into slavery, meaning he was already there. He could have been a real Roman who, based on his station, you see what I'm saying, had been demoted. He could have been old Carthaginian, you know, because he said he was a slave to Marcus Aurelius, who branded him, but he also freed him. So he, Macrinius, right, whether he was gay or not, you understand, if you're reaching the level of Roman consulship, of course, that's why he had the white man as his vassal, who he owned through gambling, through vice, through the debt, because he's working the god of, remember, these are also pagans. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't kiss him on the, well, the one I saw, he didn't kiss him on the mouth. He kissed him on the cheek and the finger, but he was kissing him as a form of killing him. Like, it wasn't like he was in love with, you understand what I'm saying? Like, Macrinius was a dirty Moor. He was somebody who was willing to kill to get what he wanted, which was, again, the destruction of Rome. So isn't that what the conscious people want? I thought this is what all these RBG niggas want. This, because this nigga in the movie, he was, this nigga was crazy. He cut the emperor head off and brought the shit onto the, brought the shit into the Senate floor and was like, if y'all want me to stop people from coming in here and doing this, y'all gonna have to just give me all the power. And then he used the head and then pointed the head at everybody as he was talking. This nigga was crazy. I thought that's what they want. I thought y'all like when the black man is doing what he doing against Rome. I guess not, though. Again, I didn't see him. I seen him kiss the white man on the cheek, but that's the white man he owned, and he was setting up to kill so he could take his throne, and eventually took over Rome for a hot minute. He was basically Killmonger. If Killmonger was a Roman. But he had no love for Rome like that. And I thought that's what y'all niggas like. Ain't that black power? A crackhead rising up to the rising up to the level of Roman emperor? I thought that's what y'all want. You can't give these Negroes nothing, man. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Macrinius represents the idea to white people as to what happens when you let them rule again. He represents the great fear. You understand? This is a great fear in Caucasian culture. You understand? This goes all the way back. You understand? To the times of the post-Norman era. Okay? When they were really striving to get the original Moors who still had sway over the land out of any means necessary. So one of the ways to do that was through plays and stuff like that. So Shakespeare, who they call Shakespeare, who himself allegedly, was melanated or whatever, he saw this downfall and this rising anti-sentiment to the forebearers of the culture that they all exactly lived. But remember, the Moorish Empire fell to its mulatto children. You know what I'm saying? Who sided with the slave mothers due to the cruel oppression of the brute Moors or the brutish Moors who held sway and were fighting over the spoils of the empire, of which they were receiving too much tribute. There was tribute into, they had too many people giving them money. You get what I'm saying? That can be a bad thing, especially when you rule everything. So what we're talking about is greed and pride. That's what Othello was really about. It was the fact that Othello was so prideful in his love for Desdemona that he did not realize that Iago was not his friend. But he knew that Iago had inference towards him, but could not necessarily see it due to his own understanding of his own valiantness as to how great he was as a commander. No one could do it to me. That's why he went crazy when his homie, I forget the homie's name, who Iago set up. I'm talking about the story of Othello now, for those people who don't know the story. Does anybody know the story of Othello?
Vaguely.
Okay, so it was the fact, okay, Othello was a Moor who grew up under the Venetian period. The Venetians were a group of mercantile kings, some being Moors, some being conversos, meaning other Moors who were now not traditional Moors. They were now calling themselves Roman, which means that they were pagans. Whenever you hear Roman, just think pagan. You understand? Don't think Christian, because Romans aren't Christians. Okay? So Othello was one of these converso Moors who was a general under the Doge. The Doge was like the Don, right? Usually a Moor. There was the Doge, and then there was the Archbishop of Rome called the Archbishop of Rome, but they wound up calling him the Pope because back then popes could have sex, so they could have babies. So the Pope will always be there with his son on his lap. And whenever somebody would come, the baby would say Papa. So Papa becomes Pope, right? Or Pope. And so that's how they distinguish that. But really the Pope is the third man. He's the low dude on the totem pole. The highest dude is the Ethiopian patriarch. Under him, the Russian. Under him, the Greek. Under him, the Pope. You understand? So the Doge